Hey, this is Pastor Micah from Life's Journey, United Church of Christ, coming to you to share our midweek devotional for the week of July 17th through 24th. I hope all of you are having a wonderful week, time to relax, time with family if you're off for this summer, or wonderful time with work and family if you're on not on vacation. I'm working pretty steadily at the hospice this week myself. Well, this past Sunday, we focused in worship on First John chapters 1 through 2, which tell us that Christ is our advocate and call us to come boldly before God. This coming Sunday, we will be continuing our study of the letters of John by exploring the latter part of First John chapter 2 to the beginning of First John 3, a section that speaks of our birthright as children of God. Think of that. You and I have a birthright because we are God's children. In the meantime, I wanted to share in our midweek reflection how the experience of some of our LGBT members in our community connect with John's words. Most of you know that we welcome people of all walks of life at Life's Journey. There's straight folks like me. There are people, we welcome people of any background. We have a special place in our heart for welcoming the LGBT community. Life's Journey United Church of Christ is one of the first churches in the Burlington area to openly welcome LGBT people and their families and openly bless same-gender couples in marriage. And I think that there are wonderful lessons that the LGBT members of our community can teach us about what John says. In First John, when John talks about coming to God, he describes it as coming into the light and leaving shadows behind. This is a radical act of trust, an act of radical openness and radical honesty. And whenever I read these words, ever since getting to know friends and family who are gay more deeply, whenever I read it, I think about my friends and fellow church members who have described to me their coming out as gay or transgender, as some of them did on our Pride Sunday service. Some of them had faked it for years with almost no one knowing. They were pretending to be straight when they weren't, or pretending to be a particular gender when that gender that had been assigned to them was not who they felt they were inside. And some folks gain something through coming out, but most people I know don't necessarily gain anything in the way we think they do. Some of them even losing friends and family along the way, at least for the short term. When they admit to themselves and other people, I am gay or I am transgender. But they receive the gift of not hiding anymore, not hiding who they were in the shadows any longer. They get to be honest and true to who they are. Their coming out was, for most of them in its own way, a coming into the light, like John speaks of. John would have us know it is not just gay and transgender folks who need to come out. Have you ever thought of that? Many of us who aren't gay or transgender live each day denying who we are, not being willing to be our true selves out in the open. And yet, God knows, God sees. God sees you and me inside and out. There is no hiding who you are or who I am. To approach God with the boldness John talks about is to let God shine God's floodlight on you so you can see who you truly are in the mirror of God's loving presence. You can't really come to God, not fully, while not being willing to be honest with God and with yourself. But when you do so, you can begin to see yourself day by day more through God's eyes. You will see some of the things you beat yourself up for before aren't failings, and you shouldn't blame yourself for. This includes things like your sexuality or gender identity, but it's not just that. There are all kinds of things about yourself you've let the world teach you to put yourself down for. Instead of failings and mistakes, many of the qualities that we have been taught to put ourselves down for are, just like your sexuality and gender identity, also just how God made you. And when you realize God does not make any junk, you will learn to embrace these qualities and they can quit feeling like curses and become gifts. You will see too the ways you hurt yourself, the ways you hurt others that you never recognized before because you were too busy putting up walls to defend yourself rather than letting God love you and show you in God's love the life you're made for. It comes to another kind of coming out that some of us need. Because of this, coming boldly to God also means being willing to put aside your defensiveness and let God change you by helping you put away the ways you are pushing God and others away. This is what John talks about when he says, if we say that we have fellowship with God while we are walking in darkness, we lie and do not do what is true. To walk implies ongoing action, ongoing daily patterns of living that push God and others away, ongoing patterns of living that tear ourselves down and tear God's creation down. What this is differs from person to person. You know, I like to have an occasional beer. Some of you do, some of you don't, but I do. Might have one tonight. My daddy discovered when I was a young adult that beer and alcohol were wrecking his life and his relationships with others. Out of this, he had his own coming out story. He came to me. I remember him talking to me one night after he had been to an AA meeting. He'd gone to sever. And he told me he was making amends and would never drink again. And he hasn't. Though alcohol had never been a problem for me, for him, he knew it was destroying his relationships with others and with himself. Coming to God boldly meant being willing to let God show him he had to let that drink go. What is sin for me may not be what it was sin for him or sin for you. And the reverse is also true for him and you. What's sin for you all may not be sin for me. But if you grow in your relationship with God, if you come out to God with honesty and openness, God will help you see those things that hurt you and hurt others that you need to let go of. For some people, their own self-criticism or self-rejection is what they need the most to lay aside in order to come out fully with God. And so we are challenged by this passage we studied last week to face into what barriers to God and others we are putting up in our own life. What are we letting stand between us and God? What are we letting keep us from coming to God each day with an open heart, ready to be forgiven, healed, and ready to grow into the person we are made to be? We are challenged to not let those barriers keep us from God, but rather to come out to God and let them drive us into God's arms. Finally, we are challenged to become a place and a people where no one who walks through our doors or into our presence ever feels they are not enough to be accepted by us here in this place and by God everywhere. Or whether it is their discouragement about trials in life, their struggles with addiction, their sexual orientation, or gender identity, all who walk through the doors of our church and the doors of our lives can come out into the open among us about their struggles and find with us support in coming to God to find the life they're made for, no matter what they faced. May we hear this call this week and answer. Amen. Amen. Hope to see you all this Sunday.